Alright, 59 crew, and here once again with my good friend Lethal, and we have got some breaking news that we're going to make a video and talk about, and that is EA, Star Wars, and the Star Wars licenses. Now, there was some reports earlier in the year that EA weren't exactly happy with the Star Wars license, and Disney weren't exactly happy with how the Star Wars games were performing. Lethal, have you played any of the recent Star Wars games?
The last Star Wars game that I played was The Fallen Order, and that was probably the last Star Wars game that I actually really enjoyed. That was really well done.
Star Wars Fallen Order was a decent game. They actually done quite well with it. Unfortunately, EA has went through a few hiccups with the Star Wars license. However, with Battlefront, or it's
Yeah.
Battlefront, isn't it? I always get Battlefront and Battlefield
Nope, you're
confused.
right. Battlefront. Yep.
But it didn't perform as well, especially Part 2. It had a bit of a shaky launch. So there was some news earlier in the year that there could be some rumblings with the Star Wars license. And today it's come out that Lucasfilm Games has now been formed, and they are going to be a kind of single entity that's going to deal with the Star Wars games and the Star Wars license. Now, Lethal, this is something that's happened much in line with Marvel. Obviously, Disney owns Star Wars, Disney also own Marvel, and they've seen how Marvel Games has done with Spider Man and how they control the license, how they decide who makes what games. And basically they're now doing the same thing with Star Wars. And the idea basically is that Disney are going to be taking control a little bit more, dictating who does what and when they do it. Now, what this is going to mean for gamers is obviously you as a PlayStation fan, much like myself, have saw the old Spider-Man games. So they didn't do so well. They were a bit disjointed, and a lot of them kind of underperformed. And then Marvel formed Marvel Game Studios, and they handed off the Spider-Man license to Insomniac, and we've seen how that worked out for them. I'm guessing you played those games or that game.
What the Spider-Man
Yeah.
games that came back out?
Yep.
No, yet. I mean, those did, in my opinion, those did really great. Go ahead. Yeah, I was gonna say that those games are really great. So what can I? It's what can we see for Star Wars?
Well, I think the idea is going to be now is what they can basically do is rather than having one company who's in charge of the whole license and they dictate what comes out when, they can now sit down and they can look at these properties and they can decide themselves, we want to hand this game off to, say, for example, Insomniac Games, or we want to hand this game to Sucker Punch or Bethesda, and they can sit down and look at what's being pitched to them and they can decide if that game's going to work for the Star Wars property. Now, this could obviously lead to a lot of different things that people have been wanting. I know for years people have been wanting to see like a Star Wars RPG, because more often than not these days it's either a flight game where you do X-Wings, etc., or it's a kind of online battling type thing that they've been doing with Battlefront. So, what type of games would you like to see from the Star Wars franchise? Is there anything in particular you think would be interesting?
I mean, because like we're just tossing around like the possibilities, right? I mean, I would love it if like say like Insomniac for whatever reason were able to get their hands on like the next like Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I love that one a lot. It had that I forget the specific name to it, but if you played games like Demon Souls, it kind of had like that difficult kind of gameplay aspect to it, where like you couldn't just run in, throw your lightsaber, and just do whatever you wanted to. You had to be super like timing and be smart with your decisions in combat. Something that required I don't know, just required more thinking before you just get engaged into something like that. I think I generally like that experience of Star Wars more. Now, I haven't, like I said, I haven't really played Battlefront. I think I played it like for funsies before, and I didn't mind it. I think it was cool what it is. I think what's cool with the Star Wars is that there's so many avenues you can go with their games. So I can see, I would love to see I think a mixture of keeping games like Fallen Order and keeping things going like Battlefront. I know back in the day there were even bigger games that I've never played, but I've heard people talk about. I think it's called like Knights of the Old Republic, or I believe it's somewhere along that line, where I think they were more like these bigger RPG, Mass Effect style, bigger RPG kind of games. So they stick it into those genres. I mean, someone like me, I think I'll enjoy that. But what about you, Hazink?
Well, the thing that I'm looking forward to is the fact that they will have a lot more quality control. One of the things that sometimes it could be a bit of a disadvantage or an advantage depending on how you view it. But historically, when Lucasfilms previously, when it came to their games, they would some people would say meddle. They would go in back when George Lucas was in charge of the company and they were putting out games like back in the day. They would go in, they would look at some things and they'd be like, "No, I'm not happy with this. I don't like how that's working. Let's scrap it." And a lot of games would be scrapped because they really were strict with what would be included within the Star Wars canon, so to speak. But when they started licensing their games out to other companies, they lost a lot of that control, and a lot of Star Wars games could be, I want to say, poor. I mean, the only ones that really stick for me that were really good was the original Battlefront games that would appear on the likes of the PlayStation 2 and the GameCube. You also had Star Wars Force Unleashed. I don't know if you ever played that one. That was a great game.
Yeah,
It was,
that was really good. Yeah. Again, that makes sense why I like kind of Fallen Order. I mean, that game was also like you can kind of like a I don't want to say it was a hack and slash, but it falls in line for me as to why I like Fallen Order because I actually did like the Force Unleashed. I actually forgot about that one. That was a really good one.
yeah, Force Unleashed was really good. The second one dipped a little bit, but the first one was really, really good. Now, obviously, with this formation of this sort of a one single branding for the studio, they're going to retain a lot of that control, and I think that's what can maybe take Star Wars games back to the next level. Because let's be honest, Star Wars is a property that you can make a lot of money from, and when it
Right.
comes down to stuff like this, that's what it all boils down to: how much money they can make, you know. But
Right.
obviously, if a game's good, it's going to make money. So it's in their interest to try and put the best quality of games out for consumers like ourselves. I'm just going to quickly read what they actually said. They've not said a lot at this point. A lot of what we're saying is speculation, but they basically announced that Lucasfilm Games is now the official identity for all gaming titles from Lucasfilm, a name that encompasses the company's rich catalogue of video games and an eye towards the future. Now they're kind of branding it much like Xbox Game Studios have done and PlayStation Studios, where they've pulled all the resources together and they just kind of put everything under the one banner. And like I said before, Disney now have experience of doing this because of Marvel Studios. So I just feel that they can lean into this quite a lot, and they've now got experience in this field. So the fact that they've already had success doing it, like they've had success and they've also had failure, because let's be honest, I don't think the Avengers game performed quite how Marvel Studios would have wanted it to. So they've kind of seen it from both angles now, and it means that they've got that experience going into Star Wars games that they didn't maybe have in the past. And I think we could be looking at a bright future for Star Wars. Again, RPGs, shooting games, stuff like that. Maybe we'll see some old titles revisited. Maybe they'll bring back some retro titles. I just think the future's quite bright for Star Wars at the minute. It's finally picking up in the movie front with the likes of The Mandalorian and stuff getting interest peaked again. So
Right.
people are kind of peaked on it and they think it might go quite well. So hopefully they can kind of take that, and who knows, maybe we'll see like a Mandalorian game or something like that. That
Right.
seems like something that would
That's
be
what
quite
that's what
interesting.
I was just gonna yeah, that's just what I was gonna kind of get into, with the announcement of like, it's the Mandalorian, right? But there's also like the new Obi-Wan Kenobi that's coming out now that
Yep.
got announced. I think there's an Ahsoka one. They have all these new stories coming out for Disney Plus, and it does make you wonder, okay, maybe they want to start taking the gaming aspect of Star Wars more serious. Like, what if they want to do some type of spin-off games off of these new series that are coming out? I mean, like you said, I think if seeing that they're going in this direction with like the TV verse and any future movies that come out, maybe they're taking. I think they're going to start making their games a lot more serious, and that's exciting for a Star Wars fan. And exciting for me because I was a big fan of the Mandalorian. So give me a cool Mandalorian game. I'm all for it, man.
Yeah, I mean, what I would like to see, if I'm being honest, is I don't know if they'll do it, but I'd like to see something like Telltale did. Bring out a sort of
Oh yeah,
an episodic adventure type game. Maybe it's 5 parts. I don't know how they would work it,
yeah,
but I really enjoyed those sort of narrative style games rather than being focused all on, do you know what I mean, action,
yeah.
hack and
I
slash
agree.
and stuff. I think it's Star Wars has got quite a rich lore, and they could dive into it and they could deliver something that maybe people haven't had before from the Star Wars franchise. So something like an interactive adventure style game, I think, would be really good. And obviously, when it comes to interactive adventures, LucasArts have a bit of history in that because of the Monkey Island games and stuff like that. So going back to that modern take on the point and click sort of a genre, I think would be quite good for Star Wars, and I think it is quite promising that we could be getting a load of new Star Wars games in the future. Is there anything else you want to add on this topic before we wrap this up, Lethal?
I mean, Hayzink, you forgot to talk about the Legos. Like, do you want to see another Lego Star Wars
Oh
game?
God, that would be. I forgot all about that. Well, we actually do have one coming out pretty soon. We've got the
Oh, do we?
Skywalker. Yeah, the Skywalker saga's on its way pretty soon. Out
Uh,
of they're like their own little thing. It's quite interesting you brought them up because I don't think that the Traveller's Tale games, who obviously make the Lego series, I don't think any
mhm.
of them have ever performed quote unquote badly. I think they've
I,
always
I was
done
gonna say like I
pretty
think that's
well.
like the other big Star Wars I feel like that I've ever heard besides like like the Fallen Order or whatever. It's usually like the Lego ones. I think they always do good, or at least people are always excited for them.
Yeah, yeah. And strangely though, I think that's its own thing though. Like I don't know the way that they've done it, but Lego Star Wars seems to be a separate entity from Star Wars because when EA got the rights to make all the Star Wars games, Traveller's Tales were still able to make Lego Star Wars, so I don't know how they actually view that. I think Lego Star Wars is its own independent thing, and it's not classed as part of the Star Wars universe when it comes to games. So that's actually an interesting one we'll need to keep an eye on in the future. But if they're going to be licensing companies to do whatever they want with games, I don't see them taking the Lego Star Wars franchise anywhere because that has
Yeah.
been one of the consistent performers. You're absolutely right, and I think they'll still continue to. Mind you, how many more Lego Star Wars games can you actually make?
I have no idea. They surprise me every time. I'm like, wow, another one? Oh,
Yeah,
interesting. Wow. Yeah, they
it's
keep going.
exactly. I mean, I suppose if they bring out any more mainline Star Wars games, they're definitely going to go back to the Lego well. But yeah, totally forgot about that. You're right. Lego Star Wars is something that we can maybe see more of in the future, especially with all these new shows that you're talking about, Mandalorian, the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, and stuff like that. Yeah, maybe we'll go back to that well one more time, and I don't think people will be disappointed. But unless there's anything else you want to add, Lethal, I think we've covered it all. But I think basically the main takeaway from this is the Star Wars franchise is no longer going to be fractured. It's no longer going to sit with just EA, and Lucas Games has been formed to basically take control of the property again, and they'll get to dictate where the games are going to go, who's going to make them, and basically what we're going to be looking at going forward.
I'm
So,
excited, dude.
oh
I'm
well,
excited.
it's
I
been
am actually excited because now that we talked about those like new Disney Plus shows and like like it's like Lucasfilm Games or it's Lucasfilm Games. I think it's Lucasfilm Games. Yeah. It's exciting. That's actually exciting because I would like to see some Ahsoka, some Mandalorian game content. So it's exciting for me at least.
Yeah, definitely. So hopefully that's whet your appetite a little bit for some new content from Star Wars and the gaming sphere. But basically that's it for today's video, guys. If you like the video as usual, please consider subscribing to the channel. We'll have more console updates rolling to you throughout the year. And from myself and from Lethal, catch you later.
Peace.